Hey, welcome to The Explainer. So, you just finished calling bullshit? Awesome. Let's make sure those big ideas really lock in before they start to fade. This is your 5-minute masterclass to make it all stick. Let's jump right in.
All right, let's kick things off with what I think is the most surprising, kind of counterintuitive idea in the whole book. It's something that, most of us in this data-driven world just get wrong. The question is pretty simple. Does more data automatically equal more truth?
And the book's answer? It's a huge, bold no. Actually, it goes a step further and says that more data can make bullshit worse, not better. So how is that possible? Well, think about it. Massive datasets can take a tiny, insignificant bias and just blow it up. They make it super easy to stumble upon correlations that mean absolutely nothing. And worst of all, they create this dangerous illusion of precision. So yeah, big data is no silver bullet. It can actually be a weapon for misrepresentation.
Okay, so what's the big idea here? The whole book really hinges on this one crucial, game-changing distinction.
And here it is. A liar knows what the truth is and is actively trying to hide it from you. But a bullshitter, they just don't care. They're not concerned with whether something is true or false. Their one and only goal is to be persuasive.
And that distinction is everything. Because what we're swimming in today isn't so much outright lies, but what the book calls new school bullshit. These misleading claims that are just totally indifferent to the truth, and they come dressed up in the fancy costume of data, charts, and algorithms.
All right, so how do we actually spot this stuff in the wild? The book boils it down to 4 key takeaways. Let's walk through them.
First up, and this one is a biggie. Visuals are powerful, but they can be incredibly deceptive. I love this phrase they use. They call slick-looking graphs epistemic weapons. Why? Because our brains are wired to process images way faster than words. We see the shape of a graph, and our brain just accepts it, completely bypassing our critical thinking. A sneaky chart can persuade you of something before you've even had a second to think.
And this right here is a perfect example of that danger in action. I mean, look at this thing. The numbers behind this chart are totally accurate, but the story it's telling, it's a complete lie. All they did was chop off the bottom of the y-axis, and bam, a tiny, meaningless difference suddenly looks like this enormous chasm. And once you see this trick, you'll start seeing it everywhere. Seriously, in corporate presentations, on the news, everywhere.
Okay, takeaway number 2, watch out for mathiness. That's what the authors call it when someone wraps a really weak argument in a bunch of fancy-looking equations and technical jargon. The point isn't to make things clearer, it's to intimidate you into thinking, wow, that looks smart, it must be true. It's like putting a lab coat on a bad idea to give it unearned credibility.
Number 3, and honestly, this might be the most important one in the whole book. It's all about selection effects. The idea is simple. The data that you don't see is often way more important than the data you do see. So you have to always ask yourself, who or what is missing from this picture? Why isn't it here? Just asking that one question can totally dismantle so many bogus claims.
And lastly, the book doesn't just point out the problem, which is great. It gives us a practical, hands-on toolkit. It's basically a simple checklist of questions to run through whenever you encounter a claim with numbers. Stuff like, who's telling me this and what's their motive? Where'd they get this data? What are they not showing me? Does this even make sense on a gut level? It's like your own personal bullshit detector.
All right, to really own these concepts, you gotta know the lingo. So let's do a quick fire round on the must-know vocabulary from the book. First up, bullshit. Simply put, it's communication that's all about persuasion, with zero regard for whether it's true or not.
Next, selection bias. This is huge. It's what happens when the data you're seeing isn't the whole story because it's been filtered somehow. The classic example is studying successful entrepreneurs by only looking at the winners. You miss the thousands of failures who did the exact same things and got nowhere.
Mathiness. We talked about this one. It's using mathematical language not to explain, but to put a costume of authority on a weak idea.
And finally, Goodhart's Law. If you work with KPIs or any kind of metrics, you have to know this. It's the idea that the second a measure becomes a target, it stops being a good measure. Why? Because people will start gaming the number itself, often at the expense of the actual goal you cared about in the first place.
Okay, so the big question is, what do you do with all this? Let's make it real. Here are 3 little challenges for you to try this week.
Challenge number 1. Pick just one single KPI or metric that you look at all the time at work. A dashboard number, anything. And just ask yourself, what is being left out to get this number? Who or what is invisible in this data?
Okay, challenge number 2. This week, try to catch yourself or your team saying something like, "We did X and then Y happened." That classic correlation-causation trap. And when you hear it, just pause and ask, okay, but what else was going on? What other factors could have caused that change?
And for your final challenge, and look, if I were you, this is the one I'd try this week. Find just one moment in a meeting to ask the simple question, what's the denominator? Someone says, hey, we saw a 20% increase. That question forces everyone to get real. Is that 20% of 10 people or 10 million? It's a tiny question that can change the entire conversation.